Good morning. Welcome. So this week, on Shabbos, we are going to learn Parshas Hazino. We are very well prepared for Parshas Hazino this week, are we not, Mr. Karp? Sure, we get to learn it 2 times. Chitas.
I listened to Rabbi Gordon.
Okay.
Very nice.
Does he do the same for both weeks? You just listen to the same thing over, or it's different? Last week and this week. You don't. Okay.
I'll never forget what.
In any case, so Parshas Hazino. Oh, he makes jokes.
Okay.
The Balatur. He likes the Balatur.
Yeah.
Okay. So Parshas Hazino, it's not an easy parsha because it's written as a shira, right?
He keeps saying it's poetry.
Poetry. That's a good term to use. Poetry. So when I was in 8th grade here at Yeshiva Chet HaMimim in Pittsburgh, so for some reason the administration decided that we were a very gifted group. So we actually took courses that were already like, high school level courses. So for geometry or algebra, I think we already did. Maybe we did algebra 2 already. Whatever. They thought we were really smart. Now, being smart, they decided that we have to also engage in some of the more sophisticated literature. So we had to read Macbeth. So I can tell you that the algebra I managed, Baruch Hashem, but Macbeth, I can tell you I didn't understand 2 words. So Baruch Hashem, they had what's called the cliff notes, or whatever they call them, the pirush. Yeah, so I had to do Macbeth with a pirush. Yeah. Anyway, so I was thinking, what's the lesson? The lesson is that from Macbeth we see that in languages there's the common language that's used, amongst the common folk for their daily conversations. But then there's a whole new level of language, like you say, Rabbi Gordon would call it poetry. I was never big into poetry. I don't know, but the bottom line is that, everything we experience in life, it's a lesson. And I realized that this is the lesson here is that in the Torah itself, perhaps that's even where it originates, we also find that there are those portions of the Torah which are actually referred to as shira, right? Which I guess could be translated as poetry, right? There's the shira of Moshe Rabbeinu and throughout the Torah, and in Navi as well. Shira's Torah, remember we had to learn it off by heart. And then I found out when I married my wife, we found out we had something in common, that we both had to learn Shira's Torah by heart. I learned it, she did so wherever she in Beis Yaakov in Bnei Brak, and I in Yeshiva Chet HaMimim in Rabbi Rosenblum's 6th or 7th grade class. We learned Shira's Torah. But in any case, so there's such a thing as Shira, and this week Hazino is referred to as a Shira. Kisvu lachem es Ashira Hazais, which simply is it's a reference to this Shira of Hazino, even though from that pasuk we learn that actually the whole Torah is Ashira, and it's from this pasuk that we learn the mitzvah that of writing a Sefer Torah, and it includes the whole Sefer Torah, not just this parsha, but the pashtos on the surface. It's a reference of Parshas Hazino, and Parshas Hazino is certainly referred to as a shira. Okay.
Never got into trouble because he told her that she
because he called the Torah right. It's miras. That is correct. So the Rebbe. It was that's miras. It's poetry for sure. Yeah. So and it's very difficult. It's very difficult to just read Parshas Hazino without some kind of help, And so Rashi, of course.
Shira, but most of it is like a.
Oh, so the Rebbe asked Akasha, the Rebbe's big kasha, B'chayra, Parshas Hazino doesn't look like Shira at all. If anything, Parshas Shira is full of teichacha, is full of rebuke.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Now, especially today, I was very disappointed because in today's chitas, we finally get to some psukim that seem to be a little uplifting. Hashem will take revenge on the nations that had the chutzpah to start up with the Yidden, right?
Mhm.
But then Rashi, well, yeah, that's after a lot of clip, but at the same time, Rashi tells us that it's actually a machlokes between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Nechemia. So if Rashi first teaches it according to Rabbi Nechemia, that it's Klape Yisrael, that the Ninu Goyim Amoi is that the Goyim are going to praise the fact that Hashem, right, that will actually that Am Yisrael, in spite of the fact that we deserved a lot of the things that Moshe Rabbeinu is rebuking us here, but we received harsh punishments over the generations. Nonetheless, we remain faithful and true to Hashem. But then we have, that's Rabbi Nechemia, but Rabbi Yehuda says that actually these psukim are all part of the Heichacha, right? And it's actually, I think I said it the opposite. Rabbi Nechemia is Klape Ha'umis. And Rabbi Yehuda says, no, it's Klape Yisrael. The Eibishter is saying that this is also part of the Heichacha of Hashem. So whatever, bottom line is that Parshas Hazino is full of teichacha, full of harsh words, right? Very harsh words. As a matter of fact, there is a klal when it comes to Kriyas HaTorah. When we read the Torah, we're supposed to begin and end on a positive note. So we don't end with a pasuk, even though that might be the natural place to end the parsha. If it's something that's not on a positive note, we'll either end the pasuk earlier, pasuk later, so that it should be on a positive note. The exception to this is Parshas Hazino, because you're gonna have a hard time finding enough positive notes, right? So the Mefarshim say that Hazino is different, because since it's during the times of Aseres Yemei Tshuva, Rosh Hashanah, and Yom Kippur, this year it's actually on Shabbos Shuva. It's not always on Shabbos Shuva, but it's commonly on Shabbos Shuva. If it's not, it's right before Rosh Hashanah, right? So being that it's a time of Tshuva, so therefore we make an exception. I mean, we have no choice, but we explained that it's different because from the Teichacha, from the words of Parshas Hazino, it will arouse and awaken us to tshuva. So it's appropriate in these days to somewhat, bend the rule of not ending, of always the rule that you should always end on something positive. So this really just actually reinforces what we were saying, is that Parshas Hazino is Kulei Teichacha. We find, however, that Parshas Hazino is actually also a Shira. Not only is it a Shira, we know that the Levium, when they were bringing the Karbanes in the Beis Hamikdash, what would the Levium do? They had a whole choir set up with instruments, and they would sing Shira. As a matter of fact, the Shir Shel Yaim that we say every single day, Sunday, Monday through Shabbos, those are the shiras that the Levium would sing by the Korban Tamid of that day, right?
Hazino.
No, Hazino, though. Hazino, yeah.
Right.
But Hazino, says the Rambam, right? That was the shira that the Levium would sing by the Korban Musaf on Shabbos. But it's long, so they didn't do the whole thing. They divided it up into 6. And every Shabbos there would be the 6th, right? And then go back to and repeat the cycle. Okay. Clearly, Hazino is a shira. because especially it's the shira that they would sing in the Beis Hamikdash, the Levium would sing in the Beis Hamikdash.
It's the school of Apernas, right?
It's also a school, okay, but it's okay. The school, we don't know. Maybe Techacha could also be a school. I don't know, but it's so we have seemingly there seems to be a little bit of a conflict over here, a contradiction. What is it? Is it shira or is it Techacha? Right?
It's a shira of the Koch.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting because so there's actually an interesting halacha that actually shows that it has to be both. Why? Because well hold on, because this is in a footnote in the Sikha that Rabbi brings that on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, because it's a zman of tshuva, right? Being that it's a zman of tshuva, so therefore we don't say halal. Halal is ashira, right? And if it's a time of Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, which I refer to as Yom Neiroim, the days of trembling, days of trepidation, right? Hayem Haraserom, Hayem Yabed B'Mishat Kol Yitzurei Elamim, right? As we say in the davening, right? And in the many of the piyutim, the poetry that's in the davening on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, which again are very hard to understand, which is why I'm a big advocate that you have to read the piyutim in English, because there's no point of just saying the words. When it comes to Kiyashma, okay, there's a day of maybe if you just say the words, you yotze, right? But I don't think you're accomplishing anything by breaking your teeth on the words of the piyutim and not really understanding what you're saying. Especially a person like me who's like standing up there leading the congregation as the chazan, and I'm supposed to be inspiring people. So what am I inspiring people with? The sounds of the words? You know what I mean? It's the meaning behind the words. And you know what? That when you read them and understand them, you'll gain a great deep appreciation. I'm going to stop right now because I think I pointed this out already a couple of weeks ago, that in the Musaf of Yom Kippur, we're coming up on Yom Kippur. So both in the Shachris and in the Musaf, there's a beautiful piyut that both the same theme. In Shachris, it's a shorter version, and in Musaf, it's a longer version. What is the theme? It's the theme. This has nothing to do with what I started talking about, Tazino and Shira, just about the idea that there are words that are sometimes difficult to understand, like Shira, right? And that's the common denominator with the piyutim of the in the machzor of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. So the theme there is basically that the malachim are perfect, right? And when they serve Hashem, they do it in perfection, and it's grand, and it's wonderful, and it's beautiful, and it's amazing, right? Mm-hmm. On the other hand, we human beings, right? We are we are not perfect. We are very imperfect. And the things that we do, even the good things that we try to do, are lacking, right? And yet, compare that to the malachim, right? You can't. And what is the piyut? What is the poem? What does it emphasize? It's not the malachim that the Eibishter gets pleasure from. He gets his pleasure, and his greatest glory is from the praises that we sing to him, as imperfect as they may be. And again, I think I may have gone through years without realizing what they were saying, and then when I made up my mind that I need to learn the piyutim, so I find that to be one of the very moving piyutim. Anyway. So V'ratzis Hashem, yeah. V'hisi l'secha v'ratzis Hashem. It depends if it's anyway. So back to Pashas Shira, we see that on the days of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, we dafke don't say Hallel, right? And yet, and that's why, as a matter of fact, Hazinu, we make the exception that you end each parsha not necessarily on a positive note, right? Which emphasizes that it's not Shira, right? On the other hand, Dafke in the series Shuva, days of awe, we read Parshas Hazinu and we call it Ashira, and it is Ashira. What does that mean? So the Rebbe explains this with a very fundamental idea that we find in Chassidus. What is that idea? By the way, a few weeks ago, we read Parshas Kisavei. And in Parshas Kisavei, that's even worse than Techacha. That's like really, really harsh, very harsh. So much so, there's the story with the Mittler Rebbe when he was a child, and he was in shul, and he heard them reading the Techacha, and he got sick. So sick that it was questionable whether he was going to be able to fast on Yom Kippur. That's how the story is told. So I guess Chassidim, asked him at some point. He said, "What was it that you heard that you didn't hear it already from the year before?" Right? So it turns out that Shabbos, the Alter Rebbe was not in town. Usually, the Alter Rebbe was the Baal Kodesh. He was the one who would read. He said, so there's two versions actually. The Rebbe brings two versions of what the Mittler Rebbe said. One of them was, as the Tate had geleit, habe ich nicht gehört, kein Klolis, ich habe gehört Brachas. When my father, the Alter Rebbe, would read it, I didn't hear the curses, I only heard blessings, right? The other version, it's a very interesting version, as a Tate leit, when a father is reading, right? A father, when you hear it from a father, right? So even though on the surface it may look like very harsh, even close, right? But knowing that it's coming from a father that loves you, right? You see it for more than what it looks like on the surface, and you recognize that it's really coming from the love of the father, and they are actually brachas. So the two versions are similar in the idea that what it looks like on the surface is not necessarily what it is on the bipnimius on the inside. Okay, so this is the nekuda what the Rebbe says about Parshas Hazinu. On the surface, it looks like Techacha, but then the fact that we read it after the Seisi Mitzvah, and we make that exception that we even end off the parsha with something that looks like it's not so positive, right? The fact that it has to do with tshuva, that it's ma'ir, right? To tshuva, zarayim, that it's actually not something negative, it's actually something very positive. For this, I would like to mention the Maimer of the Rebbe Rashab. That, as the Frierdiker Rebbe said, I believe the Rebbe brings us now also down in Hayoim Yoim, that every Rebbe had a Maimer. Something happened that that every Rebbe had a Maimer that they would review from time to time.
Can I just interrupt 1 second?
Yeah, sure.
I have one of my fiducian is that why did the Rebbe put these Pisgah in the Hayam Yom and list all the memory? But he wants us to learn those memory.
That's a chiddush. That's a chiddush. That's already okay. For that, you need to get at least 100 rabbanim to sign on before we can make that public.
How many people? Whenever you say this, people look at you like you fellow, and the same thing for the Puna Boyer. Why did they put those tell us about the memoir? But he wants to
Really? Okay, so I learned one of them, the one from the Rebbe Rashab. The Maimer that the Rebbe Rashab would repeat would be the Maimer on the post. What the pasuk means, the pasuk from Chumash, you shall know today. Not just know it, you should take it to heart, contemplate deeply on what? That Hashem is the God. That's what it means on the surface.
I have to tell you my story.
Yeah, hold on, let me just finish. But what does it mean? Al-Pi Zayar, right? Al-Pi Zayar, Ki Hashem hu Elokim, Hashem, this is the Shem Yud-Kei Vav-Kei. That's the Shem of Hashem in his glory, in his revealed level. Elokim is Hashem concealing himself. So the pasuk is telling you that Hashem hu Elokim. It looks like it's concealment, but it's really one and the same. It's actually revelation. Yeah, go ahead. What were you going to say?
So I started to remember, and I figured I'd go to the matter in my life. And I went from the physical to the shop. When I come to the Marash, in all this reductive forum, from the memoir from the Marash, in a few of them you find the migrate. It's you find it in the index. It's not inside the thing.
So yeah, you told me this one's, yeah.
I went to
Cause
I said, he says, we only sell the books. We don't deal with what's inside. I said, he says, talk to the consultant. I went to McCall, he tells me, yeah, he says, there might be somewhere a manuscript, Xerox. I said, this can't be. It can't be. It has to be somewhere. We should be able to learn this by mouth.
okay.
So I said, yes, Professor Google. I put it into your fourth Lubavitcher Rebbe, the Hasidic discourse, starting with the word boom. Kahos published it in that Hebrew English framework.
There you go.
Years.
There you go. There you go. There you go. Anyway, so the Maimer that the Rebbe Rashab that he would repeat.
I have to do it again,
Yeah, is the Maimer of Yodaita Hayem Hatzvi-Bais. So also the Rebbe pointed out the Maimer is referred to as Yodaita Moscow because the Rebbe Rashab had said this Maimer maybe for the first time in the city of Moscow, right? That's where he said the Maimer, and for some reason the Maimer became known as Yodaita Moscow, the Yodaita that was said in Moscow. The Rebbe actually referenced this, and he said that if you learn the Maimer, you understand the connection to Moscow. Because what's the Maimer all about? I mean, Hashkocha Pratis that we call it. So what's the Maimer all about? The Maimer is that what does it mean that you should know that Havaya Hu Elikim? So the Rebbe Rashab goes into a great elaboration that a person in his life, he is faced with what's called nisyonos. What's a nisayon? A nisayon is a challenge. Being that's a challenge, it means that it's something here that it doesn't necessarily seem to fit. There's something wrong, right? And that's why it's a challenge. We have to make sense of something that on the surface doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So when a person, chas v'sholem, unfortunately is suffering, is not well, gesund, parnosa, whatever it may be, right? So, that person, how is he supposed to have betochen and trust in Hashem, right? When it seems, if the challenge would be short-lived, okay, so, you have enough patience to make it through. But unfortunately, life ends up being a whole series of challenges and challenges and challenges and challenges. So the answer is that this Elikim, this is all Elikim, it's Hashem being concealed. It's not that it's a temporary concealment and just hang in there until finally you see the revelation, right? That's not the pshat. The pshat is that within the concealment, in the struggle, in the challenge, there's something there. You don't have to wait for something later. It's there. There's a certain energy. There's a certain something that's so strong that you could discover it without having to wait for after the challenge has passed, after the dark times have passed. You see it. And that's why if a person has a nisayon, right? So it's possible they have a nisayon, and then a nisayon, and then a nisayon, and then a nisayon, and it never seems like the nisayon has ever ended, right? Because what Hashem is waiting for him is don't wait for the end. Find the pot of gold that's there now. Because in the nisayon, there are amazing brachos, right? It didn't include there that it's not about a temporary time element, right? That this is not bad. No. You have to, and this is what the Mitler Rebbe would hear when his father would say the of Kisave, he would actually hear the brachos, right? In the chorus, he could hear the brachos. Okay, it's not an easy avodah. There's no question about it. It's not an easy avodah. But the pasuk v'yadata hayim v'Hatzvi-Bais that Hashem hu Elikim is a pasuk is a tziver for every single yid. So it means that every single Yid has that capacity to to be able to see the Nisayan, look at it in his face, and say, you know what? Like the Frierdiker Rebbe said, there are things that he experienced in life that he never would have asked for. But now that they happened, he wouldn't give them up for all the money in the world, or something to that effect, right? Because the Frierdiker Rebbe was telling us that, yes, there were very, very dark times. The Frierdiker Rebbe's life was literally being threatened, right? And the Frierdiker Rebbe says those hardest moments of his life are the ones that were the most precious, the dearest moments, right? And I'm going to say it's not so much about retrospect. I'm sure that the Frierdiker Rebbe Hatzvi-Bais had that fortitude, right? Obviously, he was a Rebbe, but the fact is that the Eibishter gives every single Yid, the Eibishter gives him that koyach. This comes from a very high level, by the way. And that's why Parshas Hazinu, right, is a dafke and Aseres Yemei Shuva and Shabbos Shuva. Dafke. Because it's actually the difference between Tshuva Tator and Tshuva Ilah. Tshuva Tator is something that we have to do daily, right? Tshuva Ilah, I mean, obviously you can do Tshuva Ilah as well at any time, but the avodah of Tshuva Ilah, the Iker avodah, the Aseres Yemei Tshuva, is not Tshuva Tator, but rather Tshuva Ilah. That's amazing, by the way. That's a very amazing statement. If you understand the difference between the two, as the Alter Rebbe explains it, and I get a Tshuva, is a Tshuva Tator is a person who has things that need to be corrected. That means he made some mistakes, and perhaps he made some serious mistakes. Bini, you ever made a serious mistake? No, you're a tzaddik. You don't even know what I'm talking about. But some people have made very serious mistakes in life, right? And the path to tshuva is basically the recognition of your mistake and the lef nishbar that comes with it.
And
The broken heart. You have a broken heart. That's the Indian of tshuva tator. You recognize the averos. You recognize that you're a person that was shaykh. You feel the separation that you yourself created between you and the Eibishter, and you feel that how far you have become, right? And this brings about poshet, a lev nishbar, v'nitke, right? Not chas v'sholem atzvus, not to get depressed over it, but at least what the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, the positive, the other flip side of Atzvus is what's called merirus. Merirus means that you become so resolved and bitter about your matzav that you're 100% resolved to do something about it, right? But it's not a matzav of simcha. It's not a matzav of dancing, right? It's not shira. It's not shira. Tshuva Ilah is a whole different level. Tshuva Ilah is the level, it's also called the level of Shabbos, by the way, because Shabbos has the words tashev. What's the meaning of tshuva? For example, you see a tzaddik has to also do tshuva. What's the meaning of tshuva for a tzaddik? The connecting, the reconnecting the neshama to its original source. That's tshuva Ilah. About connecting. Not about the virus. It's about recognizing the bond that the Yid has with the Eibishter. And this is the avodah of Aseres Yemei Shuva. Right? So it's really, and I've mentioned this already for the last couple of weeks, we've been talking about this idea and this theme. But when you come to Shul and Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur and Shabbos Shuva, and when you say Avinu Malkeinu, for the 10 days of the Aseres Yemei Shuva, and they feel there's something different about these days. They feel different. Indeed, they're called the Yom Ne'irayim. They're called the days of awe, right? But what's unique about those days is not that you are pulled down by your averos. Chas v'sholom. It's just the opposite. Those are days where you have such a clarity of who you really are, right? That you're in a state of transcendence, that you look at the person who made those mistakes in the past and you say, I don't even know who that person is. I don't recognize myself when I look at my own past, because you're in such an elated state, right? That's called Shuva. It's a state of elation. It's a state of transcendence. It's a state of reconnection, right? Where your neshama pasha becomes one with the Eibishter. And the Rebbe mentions in Asicha something that I've also repeated many times. Just recently, I think last Shabbos saw it in Asicha, where the Rebbe says that the Olam developed means, because when you read the Machzor, you can make that assumption that Ne'ilah, right? Ne'ilah is the pinnacle. The Asayis you made Shuva, when does it come to its crescendo, as they say, is Ne'ilah, right? What about Ne'ilah? The day's about to end, the opportunity to do Shuva, its conclusion, and Ne'ilah Sashar, the gates of Shuva are about to be closed. And everybody's all nervous because when they close, it's going to be too late. Says the Rebbe, no. That says to me, Shuva is about Shuva. Shuva is about of your existence, probably recognizing the essence of your existence, being in touch with the essence of your existence, right? Where you actually see no distinction between you and the Avaryonim, like I mentioned before many times, which is why in Yom Kippur we say, Onum atirim lehispalum Avaryonim. You know why? Because you know why they're here. They're here because they somehow they felt their Etzem on Neshama. That's what we're on to show today, right? Okay, that's why everybody's in shul. That's what we're in shul. That's what our right. So we don't make the distinction between one yid and another, because from this perspective they're all actually one and the same, right? The highest moment is when the Eibishter closes the gates, right? But because of our very unique status, right, we are actually inside the gates, says the Rebbe, to the exclusion of everybody else, of the whole world and everything else, right? It's the highest moment of connection.
In the years when cities had locked gates around them,
Right.
there used to be such a thing called Tor Schloss Panic.
Okay, everybody would run.
The gates are closing and
Okay.
it's still.
That's the way developments.
Yeah.
Comes that evidence. Sashar means that you've had now 10 days of experiencing the essence of your neshama, right? Now, there's closing the doors, you realize that we are inside the doors with the Eibishter himself.
What's a walk?
Because that emphasizes the yechida that we're yochid and sheni like. There is no what's it called, that it's exclusive. It's the ultimate exclusivity. So we're spending 10 days of Truvah experiencing our exclusive status of Yechida Shabbat Nefesh, and it comes to its pinnacle, it comes to its crescendo at the Elo, when that level of exclusivity is clear for the world to see, right? The Eden are all closing themselves in with Hashem at these intimate moments of connection between a Yid and Am Yisrael. So this is, I have to leave because I have actually my wife made for me an appointment to get a flu shot. So that's on record. So everybody knows that Deren is going for his flu shot. Yeah. Whatever, I do whatever my wife says, and my wife does what the doctor says. So the doctor, I do what the halacha says. You did.
I took my doctor.
Okay. But in any case, that's not the point. The point is that I need to end the shir now for that reason. But I hope you all benefited something from this shir, knowing. So let's tie it to Parshas Hasidus. Says that. On that level, right, when you read the Techacha of Parshas Hazinu, even though on the surface, we're not on the surface these days. We're way deeper than the surface. So therefore, Hazinu is Kol Shira. It's all about song and praise and simcha. By the way, another thing that points out the difference between Shuva Tato and Shuva Ilah. Shuva Tato, the Alter Rebbe says, is a lev nishba b'nitke. Shuva Ilah is b'simcha, right? So the simcha, that's why it's an Indian of Shira. And therefore, in spite of what it might look like on the surface, right, it's actually Kulai Shira. Why? Because when they really get a sense, he made Shuva. In a sense, made Shuva, we see things from a deeper sense and not the way they necessarily look on the surface. Anyway, the Shabbos, thank you for joining us today.